now we're recording. Okay. This is our Zoom workshop for Saturday, November 21st, 2020. This is episode 6. I do not have a title yet. And once we get done, I hopefully will be able to come up with something. Anyway, we have a number of topics today. We have, let's see, is John Bowman with us yet? Nope. Okay. We have child-parent joint manipulation. We have John just came on, and Ephraim Cheever just came on. We have may get to a Jushin sequence because I think Janet requested a Jushin sequence. We have John Bowman had questions on 3 reverses in book number 1, and I sent everybody those pages. Pardon the pun, so we'd all be on the same page, but so that in case there are any other questions on it, we can cover those. And then Dave asked for some counters, which are reverses on reverses. And that's
I don't know that we'll get to those today. I was suggesting that for the December 12th, the December meeting.
in the what?
Oh, I don't know that we'd get to those today. I was suggesting those for the December meeting.
Okay, we'll save it for the December meeting, but okay, let's do that, because I don't think we'll get to that. Anyhow, just give me a second here.
Good morning, Jeff Wynn. Long time no see.
Long time. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Playing piano?
How are things on the volcanoes?
They're quiet, thank God.
How's the underground of South America?
Less quiet.
Okay.
How are those boys of yours doing? Are they healthy?
Okay.
How's what?
How are your boys? Are they doing well?
They are. One is moving to Qatar tomorrow.
Wow.
One is in Boise, Idaho. He's a neurologist there, and he manages scripts for the film industry.
Okay, let's get right. Ephraim's online. I take it it's either cold where they're at, or someone's not awake fully yet. One of the two. Anyway,
so we're over by the San Francisco area, not far from San Francisco. It's not terribly cold, but by Bay Area standards, it's cold.
right. Okay. Anyway, first thing I want to deal with, and gonna have to rely probably have to rely on Darren again, since he has a couple of volunteers. And that is the issue of child-parent joint, because I've gotten a couple emails on people that are saying, well, even instructors, I guess the issue is many times we're taught that if we twist or bend a joint, the person goes, and it's because that joint is twisted, and the explanation is left at that. And the explanation is, I don't want to say wrong, but it's woefully incomplete. So let me borrow Darren here, and let me see if I can get him on. See how do I get to Darren? Come on, machine, cooperate. Trying to blow up. No. How do I expand the screen? Participant chat, share screen.
You look at the breadcrumb trail in the upper right-hand corner.
Right.
Right.
Speak
and click on the pin.
Click on the what?
Well, from my point of view,
Breadcrumb
you
trail.
click on the pin. I don't know what it looks like as the manager of the Zoom session.
Let me try this here.
Try double clicking on that session, on that window.
I'm still not getting what I want. I just want to get Darren. Okay. Gallery view. How do I get to Darren?
It's probably in your advanced controls. Otherwise, it's going to follow the sound too.
Right.
So if Darren starts speaking, it's going to switch to him.
Okay. Well, Darren may not necessarily be speaking, but
Yeah.
share screen. Come on. We did it last time.
I'd say if they're on the left-hand side of your screen, there's either a grid, a little white circle with either one man in it, or a grid. And if you touch that, it'll change it to an individual pane or multiple panes.
Let's see what happens with. Nope, that's not it. Mute. No. This is not working for me.
Professor Kirby, if it matters, we all can pin him individually and make him our main focus.
Okay, well let's get going here. If you can do it, because I can't. I'm gonna have to get my daughter in here, and she's gonna have to provide me with instruction at some point.
And that worked. The pinning works excellently.
The what?
The pinning him works excellently.
Oh,
So
okay.
now Darren is in the focus of my screen.
Okay, well I can't. Let's try it this way. Okay, speaker view. Okay, well, whatever's happening. Okay, where I see. Bear with me.
I just double clicked on Darren and I get him full screen now.
Yeah, well, it pops up for a moment on me, and then it goes back to multiple screen. Okay, so let's go to Darren here. I want you to just set up a Tenagi or Kote Gaish on your poor volunteer. Okay, now, and the issue is that there are many sensei or students believe that once you twist the wrist or bend it, as the case may be, that's what causes the person to be thrown. And that is tremendously inaccurate, because if I ask his uke, okay, Darren, if you set the hold properly, okay, and uke, has he locked up your wrist yet?
Yes.
Okay, are you off balance? No, I don't want you to do anything else. Don't take him off balance. Just are you okay? Are you off balance? Are you off balance? Okay, Darren, I want you to turn it a little more until your elbow locks. Okay, is your elbow locked? Yes. Okay, and you're a little more off balance.
Yes.
Okay, a little more so that, and let me know when your shoulder is locked. Is your shoulder locked? Okay,
Yes.
now you can let him stand up, because that gets me pretty uncomfortable. Okay, essentially what's happening here is the wrist, it's kind of like the song, and I can't do the song here, the song about bones, you know, the hand bone, the foot bone connects to the knee bone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What happens is you have what are called child joints and parent joints. And the wrist is a child joint. Once you lock, or I guess the proper term is joint, you dampen the joint, which means it cannot be rotated any further. It locks up. And then the next joint to lock up is the elbow, and the next joint to lock, which is the child joint, and then the shoulder, and the shoulder is what is known as a parent joint. And in order to get the body to move anywhere, you have to lock the parent joint. Once you lock the parent joint, the person goes. You know, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Okay. And this applies to any joint in the body. The neck in and of itself is a parent joint. But any joint that causes the torso to move is referred to as a parent joint. And that's what has to be locked in order to move the person's body. Okay. Now, even I think on, was it Tuesday evening, I watched part of Darren's class, and you were doing an Osotogari outer sweeping throw. Okay. And he was setting it up from a hit. And one of the things he did, and it took me a while to figure out, but it provides a beautiful example of what I'm going to get to next. And that is, who's Luke's name?
Gerald.
Pardon?
Gerald.
Darren?
Gerald.
I'm not getting it again.
Gerald.
Gerald. Okay, good. Gerald. Okay. Gerald is going to swing at Darren, which is not a smart thing to do. Okay. And Darren's going to block it. Okay. Go ahead. And he's going. And I want you to watch. I want you to watch what Darren does with his his left hand and arm as he comes into the Osotogari. Okay. He bends it back, and notice how his hand wraps around the elbow and brings it into the person's hip area. Okay, now he's locked. In essence, he's locked the elbow joint and the shoulder joint. But there's something else that's happening here. What else is what's Gerald? What makes you feel off balance? You can stand him up now, but what makes you feel off balance, Gerald?
My shoulder is rolled back, and so I'm kind of pushed backwards.
Okay, now there are two what are called, I can't think of the term now. There in the human body there are two root joints. Okay, one is the where your hara is, and if Gerald bends back, his hara or his hip area has been moved forward. Also, what's happening, the other claim more common with judo people, and I'm not picking on judo people, is that the body will follow the head. Okay, and the other root joint is the joint at the base of the skull. Okay, so for any technique to work effectively, both of those joints have to be off balance. Okay, so when Darren does the Osotogari, come in again and does it, you notice both the hara and the head or atlas joint are off balance. They're not in a straight line up and down. Okay, the hara has been moved forward, the head has been moved back, and this is what makes techniques work. Okay, because Gerald is off balance doubly. Okay, so it's something when you explain to your students, once they get this concept, it really helps them understand why and how techniques work. And they also tend to learn faster too, because it's pretty simple physics. And it's amazing, depending on how you explain things, kids learn stuff extremely fast. Students learn stuff extremely fast if you can give a logical explanation. I've seen sensei that will just demonstrate a technique, and student will say, "How does it work, sensei?" And they say, "It works." And in my book, students deserve an explanation. And jujitsu people and sensei, I know, and I'm one of them, can explain techniques to death. And that's the other extreme. We want to avoid doing that because then the student forgets what technique they're supposed to do. But in any event, you have to be able to explain to a student why a technique is working. And if you can follow this concept of child-parent joints and root joints, it really helps them understand what makes a technique work, okay, or why a technique works, regardless of technique. Okay, does that make any sense or any? Yes, Janet.
It seems to me, Sensei, that this is almost more of an explanation of why a technique doesn't work than why it does work. This is one of the things, when I run this through my brain, this is one of the things that distinguishes doing something in a dojo where your partner is subconsciously cooperating with you
Okay.
and trying something in a casual environment where you'd really like to dump this big guy on his butt, but you don't want to hurt him. And if I think back to situations like that, the difference has been that I did not manage to obtain this sort of a movement. And I've been aware of this in terms of the needing to break the balance. But I think this is a much better explanation. So that's very enlightening.
Yeah, I mean, when you say a person, you've got to off balance them. Okay, what's off balancing? And what has to be done to off balance a person? And as you said, how, on the street, nothing's going to work ideally anyway. Okay, if any of you have ever been in a street situation, you know that almost all the rules go down the tubes real fast. And you don't think of any of this stuff, but to throw a person, to do any technique on a person, you do have to off balance them. And this is physical off balancing. There's another aspect of it of psychological off balancing, and that's a whole different ball game. But you do have to off balance a person, and for just a sensei to say, well, you need to off balance your opponent or your uke or your partner first, really doesn't say anything, because the student is saying, okay, how do I off balance him? Do I knee him in the groin? That'll off balance him, but they still don't. They still don't understand physiologically what has to happen. And once they understand how things work, they tend to be better at execution, I think. Anyway, any other thoughts or?
Professor, this is TJ. You may be aware of Sensei Daryl Craig's book. He's I'm not sure of his current status, but he taught out at Budoshin in Houston. His book on classical jiu-jitsu before 1865, he has an entire opening section on how classical jiu-jitsu uniquely focuses on this aspect of what it really means to off balance an opponent. And it's a fundamental in the way he presents what classical jiu-jitsu was doing prior to the development of judo. So it's really a nice read, and I recommend it.
Yeah, what's the name of the book again?
Classical Jiu-Jitsu Before 1865 by Sensei Max Craig, or Daryl Craig, C-R-A-I-G. Excellent work.
Okay. See if I can dig it up. Good. I don't like to be redundant with what someone else says. Said already, but there are how do you say it? We each have our own way of explaining things, and I've learned many years, decades ago, as a classroom teacher, that what you think is a valid explanation, you end up with 37 of the 38 kids looking at you with a glazed look in their eyes, and you really have to make your explanations so that students can understand them, even though you as a sensei, because you understand all the concepts, yada, 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 you can give a different kind of explanation, and you have to be aware of what they're, when I've worked with student teachers, I said, you have to find out where your students are at and work from there, because that's the only way you're going to move them. So anyway, that's how I approach it. I use the XYZ axis, which was from science of jiu-jitsu, where And prior to that time, I really hadn't thought of jujitsu that way. And actually, there are people from a lot of other martial arts other than jujitsu that have bought that book and said, you know, this really changes things for me. You know, how I teach the art, which is, so I guess it's made an impression. Anyway, any other thoughts on this, or? Yes, sir, Chris.
So I think that what we're talking about, the Japanese term is kazushi. And I know in the Japanese part of it, you know, it's more figurative, right? The older languages. So
Right.
it refers to basically destabilizing the person so that they can't attack. Because if somebody's going to strike you or come and grab you, they need a stable base to launch their power from.
Correct.
So the concept of kazushi is basically to take that away from them so that their attack is negated or it's weakened. It doesn't really refer to how you go about doing it, except removing some kind of foundation from them. So it's generally taking the heavier part and leaning it over the base or removing part of the base.
Right.
So it's more of a conceptual thing, not necessarily a specific thing. But basically, if you can get them to think about regaining their balance rather than attacking you, then you've achieved kazushi.
Right. 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 And I was going to say something in response to that, and that brain cell has left me. Yeah, oh, I know what it was. And this goes back to, and Janet will be familiar with this, is Seki used a lot of generic terminology. He might say Tenagi, which is also same as Kotegaish. But he's probably shown 30 different Tenagi, and he calls them all Tenagi. And it goes back to what Chris is saying. There's more of it's more of a generic term, and I think his intention was to Tenagi is the basic concept of the technique, and there are lots of variations of it or ways to do it. But if you get the concept, such as kazushi, off balancing, and there are many ways to off balance an opponent. That probably is easier for people to retain than coming up with 30 specific names for 30 specific techniques. So now we've got one more person coming in here. Where's Tom here? There he is. Tim Novotny, be his first time on. But anyway, so is there anything else we want to do with child parent joints, root joints? Yes, Darren.
Did you want me to demonstrate the Osotogari with the lock?
Oh, no. I just wanted to show that where you were off balancing him, because that was on Tuesday night. It took me a while to realize why is Darren doing that? Because I haven't seen anyone set up an Osotogari that way before. But once I figured it out, it made sense. And as a Darren, there are many ways to set up throws. And that's what's nice when we used to have the summer camp. You get 10 or 12 people there, and you say, do this technique, and everyone would do it differently. But the core technique, the core basic technique was there. And so it became, you kind of realize there are different ways to do this. And there are very few techniques I know that can only be done one way. So anyway, okay, I think the next topic we want to hit up on is, want to go to John. Where's John? Owen. Okay. And I need to get my screen is getting crowded here. This is, no, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. I want my gallery view. Okay, we have, who's not here? Where'd Tim Novotny go? And do I have any sound? Can someone say something?
Yes,
We hear you.
we hear you.
Okay. Okay. John had a question. He asked about 3 techniques in the intermediate jiu-jitsu book, which some of you don't have. And if you don't have it, you need to email Century Martial Arts and ask them, what are you going to bring this book back into print? It's not will you, it's when will you, okay? Because then they may actually have to think about bringing it back into print at some point. Or they may put it together with something else. But anyway, there were 3 reverse techniques, and John's concern was with where the right hand grabs in the process of these reversals, or if there's anything else I should be mentioning on. And just to start things off, there's one thing I did not mention, which is critical, okay? And that is, and because I initially said to John, it really is not important where the left hand grabs. And that is dead wrong, okay? It is important. And in the first one, the floating drop throw, I'm grabbing right on his left shoulder at the top of his arm. And the reason for that is the further to the left you go, the more it rotates his torso, and the more it turns his torso, which makes the throw easier to execute. Okay, so if you look at all 3, if you look at the second one, sleeve, no, the second one is shoulder pull throw. Okay, again, I'm grabbing the left shoulder with my left hand, which makes the throw more effective. Okay, if I were to grab him on the right shoulder, he might simply come straight down on me, or he might kneel. I might not throw at all. Okay, on the sleeve pull throw. Okay, in picture number 5, that's on page 182. I actually grabbed fairly low on his sleeve, and although the technique still works, if I had grabbed up, he would have been off balanced more, and the throw would have been easier. So I guess the rule is, if you're going, or the rule of the guideline is, if you're going to grab a person for a reverse, the further you can reach to grab, the more effective the throw is going to be, because the more you're rotating his body, or the more he is rotating his body. You're just holding on for the fun of it. Now, the only problem, and I've had this happen to me, the only problem in having that pull is that sometimes, if he's a really heavy person, he can land on your arm and hand. And that can really smart, lack of a better phrase. I've never had an injury or had a student injured, but they don't like to have this person coming down on their hand or arm. Okay, to an extent, it can trap your arm under him. So maybe the play out of this is, once he's going and he's going down, you need, pull your hand out of there so that you're not stuck under, you don't have your extremity stuck under his back. Okay, the other thing was, particularly on the second one, the shoulder pull throw, you'll notice I'm stepping around his right side. So as he starts to come in for the hip throw, my foot is simply stepping around to in front of his torso. And had I really been smart at the time, or maybe I did it anyway, it just doesn't show it in the picture here that I selected. If I had shot my leg through in between his legs, it would make the throw even more effective. Because in my momentum, it's keeping my circular momentum going, and I'm keeping his circular momentum going, and the throw is easier to execute. So, okay, now once you do that, try that again, Darren.
Can I ask a question about that while we're
Yes.
looking? So on that Saniki Hikinagi on step 6, in the description, it says falling towards the left side, but be sure to block your opponent's right leg with your left leg and continue turning as you fall. So can you elaborate on that just a little bit on what would be step 6 there?
Falling towards his left side. Okay.
Are we sweeping that leg out, or?
You on the shoulder pull throw, no, not necessarily. If you wanted to, you could, but that I think complicates. Let's see. I'm going to think my way through the technique here. If you try and sweep the leg, you're going to be contradicting your circular movement, because you're trying to rotate in one direction. One leg is trying to go this way, and then the other leg is trying to go up this way. And it's what you want to do, if this is your left leg and right leg, you want them to basically be, as you sweep into the right foot, your left foot's going to block his leg. That's it. Okay. No.
So it's kind of like a Yoko Toshi.
Yoko Toshi, right. That's basically it. Which is a really nice reverse on its own. Okay, on the third one, which is a sleeve pull throw Sode Nagi, when you're thrown with a hand throw and you hold onto his sleeve, but what is also critical is that your left foot hooks his right foot and sweeps that up as he's falling over, because most of his weight's not on his feet at that point anyway. You sweep that right leg up, and that will help execute the throw. And that's, for some reason, that's a part of the technique that people have trouble with, because they don't think of doing it. I mean,
I sure did have trouble with that part. That was what I was thinking of when I was asking my last question.
But it does make, if you can do that, it makes the technique a lot nicer in terms of, it really gets the person off the ground. And particularly if you're taking the Teinagi, okay? You want that momentum going. If you can get that momentum going for you, and then if I could grab his right sleeve higher up and then sweep him, it's going to be easier to do that sweep and the throw, and he's going to go.
Does that launch him into a forward roll?
Can he do a forward roll? He would have to essentially be doing a side fall. Yeah, he's not going to be able to do a forward roll on that. No, because you're pulling his right sleeve, and if he tries to do a forward roll, he's going to end up landing on his shoulder, which is not good for him. On the street, you don't care, but you don't want your students injured. Okay.
Would you say that the Sode Nagi here is kind of like a Tani Atoshi?
A what Atoshi?
Tani Atoshi? Valley drop down?
A what?
Tani Valley?
I don't know. Can you spell that first word?
T-A-N-I?
That I haven't heard before. I mean, it doesn't mean.
It's a lot like a Yoko Atoshi, but you're dropping to the front instead of behind.
Okay. I would guess so. I mean,
that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, because like I said, Seki, Seki, how do you say it? A lot of his techniques are named for the technique itself and not the direction you have to go to execute it. And then other times, he deals with the direction you're going and not necessarily the technique itself. And that's the, you try and discern the pattern as you're learning an art. You try to learn the pattern of how your sensei, because they're using Japanese, how they're using it, the context, and it is frustrating because Sodenagi, there are many Sodenagis, and it always said sleeve pull throw. Okay, I'm sure there are 9 of us here, and each of us could probably come up with a half a dozen different Sodenagi. I guess I could use the phrase shalom. Those of you who are familiar with it, and that's one of the, it's a Yiddish term that has a whole variety of meanings, and every language has that, unfortunately. Okay. The next, any other questions on these 3 techniques? Okay, yeah, I wanted you to have the pages in front of you because I figured otherwise it'd be a discussion that only John and I would probably understand, and I didn't think that'd be fair to anyone. So, okay, next item is Jushin. Where'd Janet go? Where's Janet? Janet, you're not with us? Yes, sir. Yes, Darren.
Would you like those 3 demonstrated, Sensei? The previous 3?
Jushin? Well, it was mainly
techniques?
it was mainly for her. So I'm going to defer that one to next time. So we'll try and get it at the start. Okay. Okay. So now where's Dave, who's sitting there? It's your turn, Dave. We're to the next lesson. We have counters. Okay. Reverses. You have to be careful. Okay, first of all, in reverse techniques, you have to be careful teaching them because sometimes students set holds and reverses, particularly if it's a joint lock, reverses only work if the joint is not locked yet. Once the joint is locked and you try to do something else to get out of it, you're in trouble, okay? Because the other person has the leverage and it's very easy for them to execute or complete the technique. On the reverse that I showed, the first reverse we looked at with John, the hand throw, he has the hand throw. He's got it locked, okay? There's no way I can really get out of that safely. There are ways to counter it. No, we'll do that in a moment. If it's not set, okay, but once a hold is set, you have to, if you're going to try to counter it, you're really running the risk of serious injury, okay? I can go back to the first time I taught Seki's class and 10-year-old kid set an armbar on me. He said it correctly. I wanted to see what he'd do if I resisted, and I dislocated my elbow, which really upset the kid. But, if a person has a hold set correctly, resistance, you've got to do something that protects whatever joint is locked up. Okay, and that's where you run into problems. If a hand, let me borrow Darren and is it Gerald again?
Yes, Sensei.
Okay.
But right now It's Jordan and Gerald.
Jordan and Gerald? Okay.
Yes.
So Jordan, I remember the name. Okay. What I want Gerald to do is start to set up a hand throw, and you're going to change positions. Okay. Okay. Now, if this is being set up, okay, usually your best bet, if Jordan attempts to pull back, okay, Gerald is not going to stand there like that. Gerald is going to step forward and execute the throw because he's got it. By having Jordan step back, it actually sets the technique up. Okay, because he's bending his own hand. Okay. So if Jordan steps back, or Jordan's other option is to step into him. Okay, now if he steps into him, Jordan has a couple options. Okay. Number one, as he steps into him, okay, you're gonna have to do a couple things together, Jordan. Number one, as you step into him, you're going to have to make a fist and straighten your hand out, and at the same time, grab your fist with your left hand and pull it up towards it. Okay. Okay, and you're out. Okay. So what you do is if your opponent attempts to set a hand throw on your Tainagi, you're simply going to step in, make a fist, step in, and grab that hand and bring it up towards it. Okay, and guess what else you can hit him with now? You've got an elbow. No, that's too much work. Hit him with your elbow. Right, okay. It's going up anyway, might as well, Jiu-jitsu people are lazy. Okay, so that's one counter. Now, let's continue with this. What can Gerald do if he senses this happening? Okay, Gerald, and John just figured it out. Gerald, what's the closest joint you can reach with your left hand? Other than his wrist. What are you grabbing? Joint. Okay. Take your hand and rest it on the outside, underside of his elbow. Come under his elbow. Okay. If he's going to move in, all you have to do is move your left hand and do an elbow roll takedown. And surprisingly, okay, don't damage the wall. Okay, so if you can go through this sequence slowly, hand throw, counter, reverse. Okay, now, what can Jordan do? Okay, and part of this has to do with, your skill set. This is hard to do with lower ranking students, because they need to have these core movements down so that you don't have to explain how to do an elbow roll. Okay, so we're going to start from the elbow roll. Okay, you're here. Now, what you're going to do, Jordan, okay, all I want you to do is step in, going to your right, step in under his, no. You're going to rotate, turn your body to your right as you under his left arm. Let him raise your elbow up and go under. Go on. Can you go under? Go under your arm. No, the other way. No. Can you go under your arm? Maybe you can you go under my right arm here? Step into the right. Okay, I'm having, okay. Jordan, raise your right arm up. Okay, if he has it, okay, can you turn to your right under your arm? Okay, can you do that if he has you in an elbow roll takedown if he starts that? Oh, that's not good because he's going to go into a shoulder lock. Dump that idea. Keep turning. Keep turning. Just continue. Bring your elbow down. Okay, bring your elbow down and keep turning. Okay, so do the whole thing over again. Put it together now. Turn all the way around. How about that? Someone has someone else's wrist. And now Gerald can go through the whole thing. And you can go back and forth through this rotation until someone gets lucky and does something else. No, go under, Gerald. Okay. Okay. And it almost looks like a dance, but the point is you're developing a sequence of moves. Okay. And that's the important part. And you really can only do this with upper belts because they have to have the core techniques down to do this. Yes, sir.
Same technique, same concept on that design. Just on the elbow roll, on a hand grab here, on an entry, free movement. If I come up and I'm going into an elbow roll here,
right?
He steps with it one leg. Once I step in here, he can pivot into his left and come back around and do the same thing back to me, as I can go back to him.
Right, and that's another way to go. I mean, it's what you've got to get your upper belts doing, you know, and you can call this playing, which is essentially what it is. But it is playing, but what they're doing is they are training their brain to respond in a certain way, you know, certain situations in which they can reverse techniques, and it has to be all by body feel. That's the sole criteria, okay? Because that's what's going to determine whether or not they're going to injure themselves in the process. Okay, and that's the hard part. They have to use good judgment with each other. Because if one person decides to get, you know, funny or resist at some point, the other person is going to get injured. And so there does have to be a lot of, I say, cooperation to some extent. Because out on the street, number one, most people don't expect jujitsu techniques. And number two, if you run into someone who has had some background, they don't necessarily anticipate that you're going to be able to counter or reverse their technique. Okay. And this, you know, this goes back to what Chris said about Kazushi. If you counter a technique, you're off balancing your opponent because they're no longer able to do what their balance is off because they're no longer able to do what they were going to do. Okay. And so you have to work on, you know, this is valid only to the extent that you're off balancing them. You're using Kazushi. You're on the street, you're not going to go back and forth with this, usually. Usually you're going to have your technique and the counter is going to take the person down and be done with them because they didn't expect you to do that. Okay. And it's all it is like a person, you know, a person attacks you and what your jiu-jitsu technique is actually a counter to whatever they're doing, or judo technique or karate technique or whatever. It's a counter to what they are doing. And if your counter is effective, they go down. If it's not effective, then they quote unquote reverse it. And then you have to come up with another counter to deal with their counter. And eventually somebody wins. And the going from counter to counter to counter is what's also known as fighting, for lack of a better phrase. Or as Seki used to call it, particularly if we were on the mat doing mat randori, he would only give us 20 seconds once we hit the ground to have a pin or submission. Anything beyond that he referred to as chicken scratch. And he'd chew us out for chicken scratching. Because he says you can't spend that much time on the ground. You're going to get hurt. So, you know, that's, it all depends how far you want to extend this, but, you know, what I try to do with Gerald and Jordan is how you can go from one technique to another, but for the benefit of Dave and his students, they have to have their core techniques down. They have to have their basic techniques down. They have to, I guess more important than that, they have to understand how the human body moves. Because if you understand how the body moves, then you have more options in terms of techniques. Because if I see Darren start doing an elbow roll on Gerald. Because if I see, okay, now, Darren knows to go into an elbow roll, but his mind is not saying, okay, I'm going to go into an elbow roll. His mind is saying, there's an elbow and it's slightly bent. And if it's slightly bent, I can do something with it. Okay. And if Darren takes that approach, okay, continue with the elbow roll. Okay, so don't finish it. Okay. Now, if he gets it down here, what can his attacker do? Okay. This is a tough situation, but what you can do, if you can, Gerald, can you sidestep into him, hitting his left leg almost flush? Can you sidestep into him real fast?
Sidestep into him.
Okay, now if you can do that, okay, sidestep into him and sidestep into him, and then right away bend your elbow down. Okay, bring your elbow forward. Try it. Okay. Sidestep into him. George is not playing fair. Okay, if you come in, sidestep into him. Now, rather than taking your elbow, where'd my elbow go? My arms are missing. Okay. Okay, so let's go for rather than, yeah. What's going on here? I hate these backgrounds. Okay. Okay, now you're rolling his elbow forward. What you've got to do, okay, right now the elbow is going forward. When you sidestep into him, you need to bring your elbow back up in a backwards direction and then down. As you, that's what you want to do after you do that side hit with your hip, or you can do it with your hip or upper leg. Okay. Once you get there, once you get the elbow down, then I want you to straighten. Okay, I want you to straighten your arm. And straighten your arm. Can you turn your hand so that you can grab his wrist from the outside? Rotate his wrist. There you go. And guess what's going to happen next? What do you see? An elbow. And again, now we're going to go back to Darren. Darren, what can you do here? Except he's got you too far away. If you can come in, okay, now we got the same thing going. And so we're basically back to what Darren was doing before. Okay, now, Gerald, I want you to put him in a wrist, again, an elbow roll takedown, but with him far away from you. Okay, okay. Okay, and you're bringing him down. Okay, now, at this point, if he's far away from you, further away from you, Darren, can you kind of just sweep in towards him, sitting down on your butt? You could do that, but I would go the other way if I could.
Do that as well.
Because I'm trying to protect your elbow. That was even better. Okay. So again, it depends, it depends what your students know. Okay. Now, one word of caution on the, what I call that scissor there, which is a Hasami. Okay. It's really important if your students are not familiar with that throw, okay? It is critical that they fall backwards. No ifs, no ands, or buts, okay? I had 2 brown belts that did this when I taught at the junior high school. They knew the technique. For some reason, one of them decided to go forward. He ended up fracturing his femur and both lower bones in his leg. And that ultimately resulted, well, he was back on the mat in about 6 weeks in a really big cast. Fortunately, he went into shock right away. He was conscious, but he was not feeling any pain. Ultimately, a vice principal who decided to get involved in the process was transferred to another school because I wouldn't let him touch the student. And there are a lot of other issues that went on, but in any case, they have to fall backwards just for their own protection, okay? And this goes into another issue, which I'm sure you're aware of. If a student, if you're a student and you feel a hold is set, just take the fall. You're in a learning situation. There's no sense risking injury to yourself to prove how tough you are, okay? Because if the hold is set correctly and you resist, you're going to get hurt. So that's just another thing in terms of students being, proactive about their own safety. Because you don't want them to get hurt. Parents get upset when that happens. And I'm not talking about the parents of the injured student. All parents get upset when, if a student gets injured in your class, because if you have too many of those, parents think you're being careless and you lose students and you eventually lose your program. So, you have to be proactive about it. Anyway, what else do we got going here? Did we help you at all, Dave? Or
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can call it playing. You can call it whatever you want. I found that brown belts will do this naturally sometimes, just for the fun of it. And then they'll come to you and say, Sensei, I found a reverse. Or I found a counter. And you kind of have to agree with me, yeah, it's really good, really good. And you've seen it before, but they think they've discovered something. And it's really important that they feel they've discovered something, because they'll remember it. So anyway, it's just, sometimes it's a pleasure to watch. Okay. Any other, we're going to leave Jushin for next time, which will be December 5th. And if you have any other topics you'd like to have, let me know. We'll come up with. Ephraim, where's Ephraim? Did you get anything out of today, or?
Yes, Sensei.
Okay. Is the circle in the center of the mat where you're hoping that your attacker lands?
Always.
Oh.
Okay. No, thank you. This was fantastic. I teach Kanji Kembo, which of course has jujitsu in it, and just these little tweaks that I learned today is I was talking to my partner here. She teaches ninjutsu, so we were both looking at this going, oh my gosh, we really need to kind of modify some of the stuff we're doing, or at least play with it some more.
Yeah,
so.
it's jujitsu is a very, for lack of a better phrase, give and take art, and since it's considered a parent art from judo came from it, aikido came from it, some systems of karate came from it. A lot of the concepts really apply to other martial arts as well. And it's just, and at some level in I've even seen some karate systems at some level higher up at the black belt level, they tend to start getting some sweeps in and even some throws, which is, you know, or you find them even, I've even seen some karate systems where they eventually evolve into some what would be called Aikido techniques for upper belts. So it's kind of like, you know, but we all still learn from everyone anyway. So, okay. So anyway, I hope you had I hope this worked well. Maybe I'll call this episode 6 La Boca. In any case, if any of you have an idea for a title for the lead-in, please get it to me as soon as possible, because I'm going to be doing a lot of contemplating for the rest of this morning and afternoon as I do some yard work, which takes very little mental activity. But it's a good way to get rid of frustration. If you can't go out on the mat and have your uke beat you up and you beat up on your uke, so to speak. So in any case, any other questions or concerns for today?
Sensei, there's one thing I just want to kind of go back to for just a moment.
Yeah.
On the versatile techniques, the ukiyo-toshi, my own experience is when reversing the hip throw and using their key and combining it with my key, I found that if I grab the top of the shoulder, I protect my own hand. When I grab the side of the shoulder, I've had my hand crushed, my fingers crushed back into my hand, and these finger joints injured by having their body weight land at my hand, with my hand like in this position.
Right.
And so I've learned, and I've taught my students to grab the top of the shoulder, not the outside of the shoulder, so that that doesn't happen to them. It happened to me more than once. I'm a slow learner.
Yeah,
the second time I'm grabbing the shoulder from here on out.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have that experience?
I've had it once where I reached around and grabbed to his right arm, and fortunately I grabbed around enough so the impact came down on my wrist, but I said that is not good. So you want to grab on the top of the shoulder, back top of the shoulder, but not, or the back part, actually the back part of the shoulder, and not come around and grab on the arm and be pulling that backwards, because what happens is it turns the body too much and you get their full body weight on their left side, which is where your hand is. Yeah, you don't want, I say when a person falls, you don't want to, they want to do a nice Yoko Yukimi landing on their left side. You and doing the reverse throw don't want them landing on their left side. You want them landing on their back. Okay. Be compromised. They sort of land at a 45-degree angle, which puts the pressure on your forearm, which is safe rather than your hand. Okay. Because and the reason they land at about a 45-degree angle is because they're going for their left side. You're going, if you're on their back, you're pulling them backwards, and that's, you know, it just compromises at around 45 degrees. So it's just something, you know, you have to be careful. Like I said, you have to be careful where you put your hand. Putting it on their sleeve to throw them across their body from behind is just asking to get hurt.
I milked 3 rats at the same time. This one, this one, and this one.
Yeah. It's you know, getting the fingers injured is not good. I had a brown belt decades ago who did a cross block, a juji, for a kick, and why he had his fingers open to do that block is way beyond me. And he had 2 fractures on one hand, 3 fractures on the other fingers. And once they got the fractures taken care of, they realized he had 2 of the fingers had dislocations. He was not a happy camper for several weeks because he couldn't do anything. Poor kid. But you know, if you don't do things right, how do you say, jujitsu and most martial arts are not very forgiving arts. So you try to avoid doing things that are going to cause yourself injury. But anyway, Lonnie, you had a question there, and then Dave got going.
No question. No question.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we'll see. Unless you tell me otherwise, I'll keep it on the list for next time. And if you can't make it, you'll just let me know. And there are some people who did not make it. James Sprite had to get out at the last moment, and Tim Novotny, for whatever reason, didn't continue, but we'll get them back next week. I hope all of you have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Please don't go out and get a 50-pound turkey. Keep your gathering small, because I want you all back in 2 weeks, okay? Yeah, we're down to 3 people this time, so, but it's, at least every one of the family is still here, and that's I think what's important. And the extended family too, everyone's still healthy, so, and I'm sure that's what you want for everyone. So please have a, how do you say, they say have a safe and sane 4th of July. Same thing applies to Thanksgiving. Have a safe and sane Thanksgiving. Enjoy whatever you have for Thanksgiving, and maybe you can get together with family or friends via Zoom, or at least a phone call. And hopefully everybody will stay safe. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you, George.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Oh,
sir.
thank you. Thank you.
Learned a lot. Appreciate it.
We'll do an elbow. We'll do a fist bump. We'll do whatever else there is around here. Hip bump. Anyway. Very good. Take care.
Thanks.
have